In October of 2024, SparkingZero was released to the world. The game had an amazing marketing cycle, from hype trailers to in-person playtests and even tournaments post-launch. And after a year of playing the game almost every day, I have some thoughts. Does SparkingZero live up to its title as the follow-up to Budokai Tenkaichi 3, or is it an overhyped cash grab that was dead on arrival? Let's break this down into three categories: the roster, content, and the gameplay. I've already gone into great detail on all of these things in previous videos, which you can watch here, and I will be retreading some information, but this review is mostly going to be based on my opinions on these topics. And this will be a critical review with my unfiltered thoughts, not in an attempt to bash the game or put down the developers, but as a place to condense all of my thoughts on this game that I have loved, been frustrated with, and made an essential part of my day-to-day life. And with that out of the way, let's go. Starting with the roster. The SparkingZero roster boasts an impressive 208 characters, with supposedly more on the way. The roster ranges from Teen Goku to Full Power Jiren, and almost everyone in between. Even Shallot, a Dragon Ball Legends exclusive character, has made his way into this game. My first note on the roster is that it is impressive that they managed to squeeze so many characters into this game. I mean, leading up to that final trailer, we weren't even sure the movie characters would make it. Though I will say the fact the roster is so large makes the handful of glaring omissions even more apparent. When you have Bergamo but not his brothers, or Sin Shenron but not Nova, or hell, even Teen Goku and no one else from OG Dragon Ball, no, Roshi, Yamcha, and Krillin don't count, it creates a sense of we're giving you what we have rather than here's everything. And after reviewing every character on the roster in their own video breakdown, I can say the characters on the roster like UI Goku, Teen Gohan, and Hit are so fun to play. They have so many unique skills and animations. Those are the characters that make you feel like you're fighting in the world of Dragon Ball. But then there's characters like Rosie and Kaba that just feel uninspired, redundant, and dull. There is a stark line between these two extremes, and I would have liked a bit more variety and care when building these characters. And that's not to say I expect every single character to have a wholly unique moveset. I understand we're gonna have volleys, explosive waves, and full power energy waves. Stock moves like these just come with the territory of having a roster this size, but small things like more unique grab animations, more variants in key blast color, and more unique base combo strings would have gone a long way in making the roster feel fuller and more realized. I see the sentiment a lot that the devs are lazy and they just don't care about this game. I also see a lot of folks defend and say, well, we got the game and you can't expect every character to be 100% unique. And to both of you I say, Bandai rushed this game, in my opinion, to match with the release of Daima. Now, calling the devs lazy is such a smooth brain take, but defending Bandai is equally as foolish. The truth is, the game needed more time. Bandai didn't give them that time, and the product suffered. It shows in every aspect of the game, but especially in the roster. I can't complain too much though, my boy Tapion made the cut, and that's what I love about this roster. Chances are your favorite character is here, and even if they're not, there is still enough options to find a main, build wacky team comps, or even just hop into Yamcha games and see what you get. Now, this is the first Budokai Tenkaichi game to receive DLC, and I gotta say, I'm wishy-washy on the whole thing. On one hand, I love that the game is getting continued support, and I think almost every single DLC fighter we've gotten has been an excellent addition to the game. Characters like Beast Gohan, Orange Piccolo, Super Saiyan 4 Daima Goku are some of the best characters on the roster, but the packs themselves are just a bit lackluster. I actually am fine with them just releasing characters and character packs, though I do wish packs included more costume options, as the customization in the game is quite limited, and we'll get to that, but one costume for Piccolo and an alt costume for Mini Goku to unlock his transformation is pretty weak when we have modders pumping out genuinely quality content for the game for free. Now, I appreciate DLC Pack 3 including the first Demon Realm map, and I do love it, but it also felt like too little too late. I was always one of the folks that never expected them to release any maps with the DLC, so it was genuinely a pleasant surprise, but who knows if that will continue going forward. To me, adding 20 plus characters to an already massive roster doesn't address the true problem of the game: content. When it comes to SparkingZero's content, it really doesn't dip below the surface, and that's frustrating, especially as a primarily offline player myself. I've been playing these games for years. Like, I played BT3 when it launched. And I'm not above admitting that I'm not particularly good at these games, at least not in any serious competitive way. My enjoyment from these games is the experimentation, playing as every character, building out fun teams, and even just watching the CPUs fight like I did with my series fantasy fight. So when it comes to content, I want to be able to play this game endlessly without ever touching the online. And, well, you just can't. Starting with the campaign, it's actually pretty solid in my opinion. I like the direction they took, leaning into the what-if scenarios, giving multiple characters to play through the game from their side of the story. These are all fantastic ideas, though admittedly they're a bit half-baked. Characters like Trunks only get a handful of missions, while obviously Goku gets the entirety of DBZ and Super. I get not every campaign is going to be as fleshed out as the main characters, but with a lot of them they just seem unfinished. Or with characters like Gohan, more effort was put into fleshing out the what-if branches than the actual core story. And that's fine, but they didn't lean far enough one way or the other and ended up riding the middle and created a fun, well, unremarkable single-player experience that can be completed in just a couple of sessions. Also, why are Super Saiyan Vegeta Scouter and Gohan Black not playable? They're literally in the game, Bandai, just unlock them! Anyway, moving on from the campaign, there is the custom battle mode, the thing that was supposed to give this game the longevity it needed. What we thought this mode was going to be was along the lines of a Mario Maker-esque story creator, where you could create epic battles with built-in cinematics and use your own creativity to tell your own little self-contained stories. And that's kind of what we got. Really, Custom Battles is a complicated and tedious battle creator that once again feels like it was created with good intentions but wasn't given enough care. I recently revisited Custom Battles and there are some genuinely fun fights. People have really begun figuring out the system. But there are some glaring issues that just make me sad that what we could have had could have been something great. Again, some of the fights I did were genuinely fun, but they had me thinking, why am I doing this over just doing it on my own in the normal battler? Outside of giving fighters more health or manipulating the opponent's behavior in a way you can't in normal battles versus CPU, all you're really getting is the janky slideshow presentation cutscenes that interrupt your combat flow. There really isn't a reason to use custom battles over the normal versus modes, especially with capsules. Most of these battles just end up feeling like raid bosses where I'm fighting a damage sponge that isn't particularly difficult, they just have way more health than me, and sometimes it doesn't let you fly or whatever. I think more player freedom, as well as more customization options like changing maps mid-fight, more map destructions like being able to destroy Earth mid-fight, more costumes for fighters, would have gone a really long way in making these battles feel more fun. The lack of any of these things not only makes custom battles feel underwhelming and too complicated for it to be worth it to learn the system, but the fact that the game has so few maps, costumes, stage destruction features, and even what-if characters and scenarios outside of the campaign just makes the entire mode feel like there's stuff missing, like the rest of the game. Now moving on from customs to our core modes, we have online, offline, and world tournament. Starting with the online. The online modes are pretty straightforward. You can fight against opponents in 1v1 battles, team battles, and DP battles, where you get an amount of points and draft fighters with various point values to build out your team. And you can play all of these in casual or ranked modes, as well as with your friends in private lobbies. Again, after the first few months of this game being out, I pretty much dropped online completely, but what I can say is that this is the game at its worst. When you have thousands of players who exclusively play the game online and ranked, I understand why so many people hate this game. The netcode is terrible. Playing against someone with worse internet than you is unbearable and often results in them winning just through sheer input advantage. The lack of crossplay means that every platform is split off into their own islands and really hinders the ability for casual community play. And of course, you have the fact that in any competitive environment, people are gonna try to win at any cost. Enter MUI Goku spammers, glitch cheesers, the folks that have unequivocally sucked the fun out of this game. And I don't really blame them. You want to win matches, so you do the thing that requires the least amount of skill and grind until you hit Z rank and then you log off. The unfortunate truth is that that just ruins the fun for people who, while wanting to win, sure, don't want to just spam the same character shooting full power ki blasts from across the map the entire fight. That shit is corny and lame, but it ends up being if you can't beat them, join them, or they just quit the game entirely because there is no fun to be had in that sort of environment. And that's kind of all I have to say about the online. There has been some balancing, and I'm glad that Bandai is working on what seems like an impossible task, but until there's some serious changes, the online will continue to be a cesspool of broken nonsense. As for the offline modes, obviously you have the training range and stuff, and I think this game's tutorial/training range is actually pretty solid. No notes. Then you have player versus CPU, CPU versus CPU, and local split screen, all of which you can play the same modes that you play online. The CPU in this game isn't particularly difficult, but between capsules and adjusting their behaviors, you can at the very least make battles a bit more interesting. I spend most of my time here, fighting super level CPUs and experimenting with different capsule combinations, recreating iconic battles, or going it with Goku and Vegeta against 5 other enemies, and fusing when things get dicey. That's what the Budokai Tenkaichi series is to me. Creating wacky what-if battles, simulating classic DBZ fights, and just playing for the fun of it. No rank, no ladder to climb, no sweats, just Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta versus the world. And it's even better with mods. The modding community for this game is fantastic. Hell, the gameplay you're seeing now is not vanilla. All of the fights that are in the background of this video are actually from Sparking Omega, which is an amazing project being worked on by a ton of talented people, and you can find the link in the description so that you can go and support them there because they are doing a ton of awesome work trying to make SparkingZero a better game. Now, I will say I also love that we got a split screen mode. They could have very easily not included this, and it seems like at one point they planned not to. But they listened to community feedback, and now you can fight against your homies on the couch on any map with any fighter. And that is just something so special that you don't really see with a lot of games these days. CPU versus CPU fights are also super fun. I love watching the comms duke it out and creating my own fights. It's like smashing your action figures together. It's a simple feature, but it makes for some really cool battles, and I know I've probably used it more than anyone else, so I can confidently say this is a W feature. Though, as I mentioned, there is a serious lack of customization on every single front. There are only 13 maps in SparkingZero, with some iconic locations being omitted, like Kame House, the Lookout, Space. And fortunately, as a PC player, I am able to play on all of these stages with mods, and it's amazing. But the fact that none of these maps made the final cut just makes me more confused than anything, and I also just feel bad that console players don't have access to the same sweet stuff that I do. In addition to lack of maps, we have a serious lack of costumes. In BT3, every single fighter had at least 2 costumes, their base and a palette swap, at minimum. And I think it's a shame we didn't get that here, especially as, again, modders have created a tool that allow you to freely color swap every aspect of every character, and it's awesome. But there's also iconic outfits that didn't make the cut, like End of Z Goku, Gohan in his orange gi, or even outfits that have never been in one of these games but would have been great additions, like Goku and Vegeta in their snow coats from the Broly movie. And it's hard to say why they aren't here. Maybe they plan to release costume packs and map packs as a fee down the line. Or maybe they're saving content for a sequel? We just don't know. However, the last mode we have to talk about is the World Tournament mode. Here you can choose between a handful of tournament rule sets or create your own, and you can do these online or offline. And honestly, these are a lot of fun, especially Yamcha games. I love just getting a random fighter and having to fight my way through the tournament as someone I may not normally have chosen. However, they made some changes to the length of tournaments, and that feels a bit strange. They go by way too fast now, and the reward for completing them is just some Zenny or a Dragon Ball, which after playing for a while are both pretty much useless. However, I feel similarly about custom tournaments as I do with custom battles. There just isn't enough freedom to choose and craft them exactly how you want to. So while I genuinely think tournaments are super fun, I also think they could have been better. As far as other content the game has to offer, there really isn't much else of substance. There's a replay viewer, you can customize your player card, and there's girl talk, which I do love. And of course, there's all the missions you can do for Whis and Zeno, which you mostly accomplish by just playing the game. And that's basically it. When I say the game is lacking content, I mean variety, especially for offline. Standard online and offline battles and tournaments is just not enough to keep players playing this game for another decade. So I wanted to share some ideas I had on modes they could add as content updates in the future or in a sequel. Again, I don't think they're going to do this. Let's just call this a content wish list. First up, an endless mode / a fighter gauntlet. Why don't we have this already? I mean, come on. Just the option to create a team of up to 5 or even go in solo and try to hold your ground against the entire roster. Imagine the content possibilities. I mean, Mr. Satan versus all of Dragon Ball practically writes itself. But with the addition of capsules, you could make it even harder for yourself, like no transformations, no flying, etc. And maybe the only way to heal is to find senzu beans by destroying bits of the environment. Or maybe even something simpler, just recovering HP after every fighter you knock out. And that percentage scales down the deeper that you get into the battle. This just needs to happen. Dead stop. Second, hero arcades. Now, when I say hero arcades, Think Smash Bros. You know how in Smash Ultimate they have the classic mode, where pretty much every fighter has a unique mini-campaign? That would be an amazing addition to sparkingzero. It doesn't have to be that in-depth, just like 10 sequential battles themed around the fighter, like Birder/Dispo going against other speedsters, Pan fighting against younger opponents, Goku Black fighting against everyone that looks like Goku, and so on. And maybe throw in some minigames like flying through hoops or trying to deal X amount of damage to a target in a limited amount of time, and boom, you have basically an endlessly replayable mode for a relatively little amount of effort. Third, tag team raids. Yes, I know, this is so far out, it may not even exist in our conceivable reality. But the idea of two players selecting one or two fighters each and entering into an epic battle against multiple or just one Giga Chad opponent and swapping in and out and taking turns playing is so good. It creates a new perspective on the game, one of cooperation, working together rather than fighting one another. It basically already exists locally. Just make your own rule set and pass the controller to one another. But I think it would make for an excellent online mode as well. And those are kind of all of the ideas that I have, but I think all of them would be great. But now we're gonna move on to gameplay. We've discussed the aspects that make up the game, now it's time to talk about how the game actually plays. sparkingzero attempts to recreate the magic that was the Budokai Tenkaichi series. BT3 is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and the only hope going into sparkingzero's release is that Sparking just feels like a faster, modern, and more epic Budokai Tenkaichi. And it kinda succeeds. It does feel like a modern Tenkaichi game. The core foundation is there, between characters having similar movesets consisting of 2 skills, 2 blasts, and an ult, the ability to charge ki, and a variety of combo strings with multiple branches to go down to perform some pretty sick melee attacks. It captures the essence of the BT series, and as an old school player, it felt very natural to hop in with the classic controls and just start playing. The problem I, along with a lot of other people who play this game, have is that while the attacks may be functionally the same, the impact is nowhere near as satisfying as the older BT titles. The punches feel weak. The sound design just isn't it. Even after they added the Type B sound font, it still just doesn't feel as good as BT3. And basic blast beams just feel so underwhelming. And honestly, the size of the beam isn't even the problem for me. I never had an issue with the beam size, especially when you consider, 1, in BT3, the beams would cover most of the screen, and in an online environment, that would just create some weird interactions and plenty of unfair situations, leaving you less likely to use them at all. But 2, the last core Dragon Ball arena fighter we got in this style was Raging Blast, and those beams are tiny. I think sparkingzero found a happy medium between the two series, but the impacts are dull. There just isn't enough feedback, camera shakes, lens flares, or even just lingering on the attack a little bit longer, because they just kind of vanish as soon as they're fired off. And this is true for Blast and Ultimates. Another problem I have with the beams aesthetically is the weird texture inside of them. Why does this exist? The beams should just be white. The only color most beams have is the glow surrounding them. The interior beam shouldn't have any color. So this weird sliding fractal noise just makes every beam in the game, with the exception of intentionally thin ones, look off. But other than the average attack feeling weak, I don't really have that many complaints about the gameplay. I like the changes they made and the mechanics they added, like short dash and perception, and I think with fine-tuning, the core gameplay could easily be just as good as BT3. They just need to make smart changes to things and maybe bring back some of the stuff that they cut. But they've shown with changes like infinite energy for androids and the way charge ki blasts work that they are willing to adjust as necessary, and I hope with a few smart changes here and there, the gameplay could be even better than it already is. Like I said, I like this game. I think it is fun to play. The variety of clashes creates a really cool pacing in fights. Hitting combos and following up with beams and rushes feels good. And most of the animations in this game are top tier, with some amazing camera work to boot. There are some weaker examples, along with a slew of reused animations. And I am 100% okay with reused animations when used sparingly, and I think for the most part they are here, except for grabs. We 100% needed more unique grabs, and I'll die on that hill. But staying on the topic of graphics, I mean, the game is gorgeous. If your system can handle the highest graphics settings, this game is unparalleled. The models, the VFX and particles, and the environments are just truly spectacular. I don't think it would be too much of a hot take to say this is the best looking Dragon Ball game. Only haters will disagree. And that's up against the likes of Kakarot, which is a beautiful game, but I think Sparking just edges it out, especially on the actual models. And yes, I do have some minor complaints. Gohan's forehead is too big. I don't love the way Super Saiyan 3 Goku looks as much as the next guy. Jiren's shirt popping off before his transformation actually begins is wacky, etc., etc. But a lot of that stuff is nitpicks that I wish that they would just fix, because for the most part, this game hits when it comes to the things that you're actually looking at. Fights are big, flashy, satisfying. The maps, though there are few of them, are diverse and work as amazing set pieces for some truly intense matches. Whether you're interested in climbing the ranked ladder, discovering what the campaign has to offer, or just want a fun, flashy Dragon Ball game to play with your friends, SparkingZero has a lot of fun to offer. Nothing will ever beat finishing off your homie with a Super Kamehameha beam struggle in the time chamber. It's just fact. Where SparkingZero fails is simply a lack of content and a clearly rushed development. If the game had just another year or even two to cook, to fine-tune things, to include missing content, have playtests for feedback, and just clear communication from the dev team all around, I think this could have been the greatest anime fighting game of all time. But for now, that title does remain Budokai Tenkaichi 3's. But if Bandai puts in the work, I could see this becoming something truly extraordinary. Or maybe I did before they announced the Switch 1 port. I don't know why they did that. And I do think that it is hindering some of the development of the actual game. If you can get it on the Switch 2, motion controls seem like a lot of fun. I used to play BT3 on the Wii, and that is my preferred way to play it to this day, so that's all I'll say about that. If I'm gonna rate the game critically on the 1 to 10 scale and try to set aside my nostalgia, I don't know. I love this game. It's fun. I play it almost every day over a year after release. And I've grown an audience playing and talking about this game. But it does have issues, and I'm not above critiquing this game when it deserves it, and most of the stuff I've talked about in this video is 100% stuff they can fix. But it's up to them to fix it, and the cynic in me feels like they won't. If the future of SparkingZero is a couple character drops that we have to pay for and whatever they decide to do with Legendary Warrior Face-Off, then I think I'm good. I'll come back to the game every now and again in the same way that I return to BT3, but it won't be the game. That being said, 7 out of 10. Or like a 3.5 out of 5. I like 3.5 out of 5 more. So yeah, SparkingZero is a 3.5 out of 5. Not the best game in the world, but a fun game that's worth diving into if you're a diehard Dragon Ball fan, or you can cop it on a steep sale. But with that, those are my thoughts on SparkingZero as a whole. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I really appreciate you sitting here listening to me yap about this game for, jeez, almost 20 minutes? Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you everybody again so much for watching, and of course, as always, goodbye forever.